Hey, it's AP, and today we're making the KRXOR thermal detonator prop kit. Check it out. I had my eye on this kit for a while now. This is a beautiful replica of the thermal detonator first seen in Return of the Jedi. And I was lucky enough to get my hands on one. Thank you, wife. And today we're going to put it together. All right, so in this kit, so you can buy, I think there's two versions of the kit. You can buy one that has electronics and one that does not have electronics. She got me the one that has electronics because she is awesome. And so in this kit, you get, okay, so you first get the thermal detonator itself, which is this beautiful, I believe it's nickel-plated brass. It has such a nice high shine to it. It's also a lot smaller than I thought it would be. So you have your top, your bottom. Yeah, this thing is heavy. It's a good couple pounds. It's solid. It feels solid. And then you have your middle ring here, and it all will eventually screw together somehow. And then you have your cool thermal detonator. So also in this kit, we have electronics. So we have a speaker. We have a it's like a sound. We have a board here with a SD card that comes with it. That's probably with the sound effects. We have a chassis that will hold all of the electronics in place. This is just a 3D printed chassis. You can get, if you are so inclined, over on Shapeways, a cooler looking chassis if you want to do some sort of reveal for the thermal detonator. It's kind of like this brassy, wiry looking thing. It's super cool, but I'm more about the outside versus the inside. Some therapist is going to look into that one. A battery. It's important to note, though, it's always good to have a backup battery just in case. We have, this will be a lens holder, LED lens holder. Nice LED lens holder. Screws galore. This is a 3D printed and nicely finished slide switch. So this will eventually go on here. This will slide back. We have the switch, the internal switch, and a Panther track to grip onto on the thumb. We'll leave those in the bags for now. A bunch of LEDs and some more LED holders for the centerpiece. Okay, so let's start putting this. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we start putting it together, I want to weather this a little bit. So the screen version is very dirty. It's chipped, it's peeled. All I'm going to do, though, is I just want to dull down this shine. This is like the shine level of the Phantasm Sentinel spheres, and that's not what I want. So I'm just going to use some Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to just scuff it up. This is, I don't know what grade Scotch-Brite this is, but this is, yeah, it's already dulling it down a little bit. So we're just going to scuff that up. Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay. Oh yeah, that looks like it's been in someone's bag for a while. Yep. You can even kind of go through the trouble of dinging it up if you'd like, just using your hammer and a screwdriver or your Dremel tool and adding some nicks and bites to it. Yeah, oh, that looks great. Okay. So you can, I don't know if you can see the difference here, but this is the Scotch-Brite and this is the undone one, and oh, that looks so much better. Okay. I think Adam Savage on his channel, when he did this, he blowtorched it, and I actually was thinking about using the blowtorch on this, but I don't have a really safe way of holding it to blowtorch it, and I don't want to like set myself on fire. That wouldn't be cool. So we're just going to do this. And this is far better than what I expected it. So, all right. I'm not going to do anything more than that. That's awesome. Okay. And that's not doing anything. Okay, that's all right. Oh, that looks great. Okay. I need to first attach so this is the switch holder, kind of plops into there, and then this screws on through the bottom. And it looks like we will be using, well, there's only one of these, so I guess that's the one that we'll be using. You will need a 2.5 mil hex driver. I think all the screws in here are 2.5. So we're putting this in, and I'm just going to drop this screw in there, and we're just going to screw it in. Okay. Ooh, that was very tight. So I'm just going to loosen it a little bit. A little bit more. Oop. There we go. And then we take the Panther track, and that glues into place. Just a little bit. Okay. And on this one, there's a little nub that's sticking out. That goes and faces forward. There we go, like that. Okay. Now, he's holding a thermal detonator. Oh! Okay, cool. Now, let's put you aside. We'll take this. So this is going to hold a LED. That's going to have to be glued in place. So let's take out the LED. So this has a red has the 3mm LED, and pretty much this clips into there. This so this actually, so we have to do a little trimming here. So we need to trim off the edges here. Just carefully, you don't want to crack the whole thing. And then this goes in here. And then, there we go. Okay. And we pretty much glue this all together. So I'm going to take a little bit. So I cut off a little bit too much. I was only supposed to cut off the wider part of the flanges. And that isn't a big deal. It's just going to make this fit a little bit more interesting. So pretty much I just now take the trimmed LED light cover and I push that into place, and it should, it actually still pressure fits in nicely, but I am going to add a couple drops of super glue to make sure it stays in place. And this is where I wish I had some thin. I'm just going to put it on the edge there, so it's touching the metal, and a little bit right in there too, or on the edge. Now, what also this did is my 5mm LED was supposed to pressure fit in, but now that I've cut off all the flanges, it doesn't. So I'm just going to use a little bit of CA glue there as well to hold that in place. Just a little dot. Yep. All right. We'll just let that now sit for a moment. All right, now that that's dry, I'm going to put a little bit of CA glue on the lip of this now. Just a little bit, a couple drops. Simply pop that into place. Next, we're going to install these LED holders. These are for the LEDs along the side. And to do that, we're just going to, so you have your holders, the LED holders themselves, these white pieces here. You have these rings that will go around the LED lights once we're ready to install those. All right, and so I'm just going to trim these. All right, so before we start putting all that stuff in, there are these grub screws here, these very tiny grub screws, and those are going to hold, the lights in place. If I could give any feedback to our friends over at KR Sabers, it's that spare parts would be most welcome to those of us who do stuff like that. I just jinxed it, didn't I? Nope. Ah. Oh my God. So I'm going to actually mount it onto my driver first, then do this. There we go. I'm not going to put it all the way through yet because I have to kind of place everything. Right. Okay, those are in. So now that the grub screws are in place and safe, we're just going to take the metal holder and put that over the LED holder. And this is just to help us place these right now. And so I'm going to pop that in. Oh. And then I'm going to slowly tighten down the grub screw until it just hits. Do not over tighten this. That would be a bad thing. Just let it gently hit it and then let go of your LED holder and then move on to the next one. So now we have the placement of our metal ring. And then you just repeat for the other two. And this right now is only for the placement of these rings. Once we start installing the actual LEDs, we'll put these LED holders back in. I'm not going to do the LEDs just yet. I want to finish the kind of the mechanical pieces of this first. Okay, so moving on to the final kind of mechanical assembly. So in here we have, so this is the bottom. And with this kit comes this little metal dowel. And that dowel fits in this hole right here. And that will eventually serve as a stop. Because when you put this thing together, the two halves together, it kind of screws together. And so let me just, and again, there's only one of these, so do not lose it. That just kind of, that just sits there. And you know what? I'm actually going to put a little bit of CA glue on this just to give it some grip. Just a little bit. So as you can see, that now is serving as a stop. Perfect. Okay. Next, we take our grub screws, and we're going to put those into the holes that are not raised, and we're going to screw them in so the screws are coming in down that way. And for this one, you'll need a 2mm hex driver. And what this is eventually going to do is this is going to tell us or give us the ability to tighten or loosen when we're kind of connecting the whole thing together. So then you have three screw holes here. This has 3 holes which line up to that. We just kind of drop this in, screw that in place. When we get to the electronics, that piece will be sitting right here. Actually, I'm not going to screw this last one on just yet because I want to test fit it. So now when we put this on, you can see how this screw serves as like a little bit of a tab. I don't know if you can see that. See this little tab here? There's also a hole here, and a hole here, and a hole here. And so you want to line up the screw heads with those holes. I think my grub screws are a little too high. So let's bring those down a little bit. Now let's try that. Oh, okay. I think that's in. All right. So this is the static thermal detonator. So now we need to bring it to life. This is heavy, man. I would not want to be hitting the head with this. That's beautiful as is, but we have all these electronics that we need to put in. So let's do that. And now I have to figure out how to separate these without breaking it. Okay. All right, now we're getting into the wiring of this. And for this, you're obviously going to need all of the pieces that come with it, but also a soldering iron with a nice, sharp, fresh tip on it, some solder, and some wire. I have a bunch of servo wire left over, so that's what I'm going to be using for this. So space is at a premium in here, so you're going to have to be very careful. All right, so this is the top, and this kind of sits in here like this. All right, so that's the room that you have to work in. You have space for your battery, the switch, the soundboard, the speaker. It looks like a channel for some wires running along down here, and then the LEDs here. All right, so now I'm going to put a little bit of super glue on this to kind of help hold it into place. All right, this I super glued in place. Okay, so now,
first things first, we need to make the most of this tiny space. I trimmed down the legs on the LEDs. Now remember, the long lead is the positive, short is the negative, so keep that in mind when you're trimming them. Once all three are trimmed down, I tinned each of the leads as well as the cable. Tinning just means putting some solder on each end before actually connecting them. This makes the whole process much easier. A little heat shrink helps keep everything nice, safe, and protected. Just gently and quickly rub your iron against the shrink to make it, well, shrink. Oh, and don't forget to test your LEDs as you go along because you never know. Next up, the speaker. There are two nodules on each side of the speaker. Which side the wires go doesn't really matter here. Onto the switch. This has 6 legs on it. However, we just need 2. We'll eventually trim off the ones not in use. Finally, we'll wire up the red LED in the top section. Again, trimming the legs for the sake of space and some heat shrink for safety and looks.
we need to, so this goes in like this. Right, because then you have the charge port here in the bottom. The speaker goes here. So the speaker actually fits in this way. So I'm going to just put a dab of hot glue here and a little dab here. Okay. And I think yeah. All right. Cool. We have our speaker in. Here's the battery. I'm just going to cut this off. The battery eventually goes in. And the battery goes there. Okay, so. All right, but before I do the battery, okay, I need to put the LEDs in, okay. Super glue. And I'm doing this so the positives are facing up. We have our lights in. So we got all the positives together, we have all the negatives together. And I just want to, okay, and then we have all of our positives. And for the sake of placement, I'm just putting the battery pack in right now. Okay, let's do the speaker since that's at the very bottom here.
To wire the switch, bundle the positive leads from the LEDs and the positive lead from the switch. I just twisted them together and then tinned them. Next, I took a small single piece of wire and connected that to the bundle and then soldered this single piece to the board. Finally, solder the other switch lead to the board. Now we're going to solder the negative LED leads to the board. Connect the battery and test.
Okay, so let's see. Does everything work? Okay. Okay, now we start putting it all together. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue and just put it right here. And maybe a little bit right there. Let's just double check that that still works. Sure does. Okay. Then we can put the battery in place there. Okay. And then the switch. And the switch goes. Oh, so just something to point out. I trimmed these all down to help give me as much space as possible.
Once the switch was finally seated, I could start closing it all up. First, screw the electronics section to the top. Just line up the screw heads with the notches in the bottom of the detonator, and then turn from there. You may have to tinker with the grub screws to get a snug fit. It's really just trial and error, but you'll get there. And here it is, my very own thermal detonator. Is so fracking cool. Okay, so the only thing that, the only weird thing about this is I've noticed that if I let it sit for a little while, there becomes a delay when flipping the switch and then the sound's activating. Let me see if this will, yeah, see, it took like 2 seconds for it to activate, but then when I close it and then reopen it, it's immediate. So I don't know if I have bad wiring somewhere or what, or if it's the board, but just something to think about. It still is beautiful. It still works great. I have zero complaints about this, even with the delay on the switch. So I will leave a link in the description below so you can go pick up your very own thermal detonator. The last time I checked, which was, let's see, it is April 15th, 2021, there was a waiting list for it, so just sign up for that. Who knows how often they restock these things, but you do want to get one because it is a super cool collector's item to have on your shelf. I mean, how many friends do you know have their very own thermal detonator? Delay. There we go. Delay. Nope. Okay. Ah, there it is. I hope you learned something new today. I hope this helped you with your own build of this thermal detonator. I will also leave links to others who have gone before me in building this so you can see their process as well. It's all relatively the same though. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below, let me know what you're working on. If you are putting this together right now and you're running into a hurdle and maybe there's something I can do to help you answer a question from my own experience, I'm more than happy to help. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because you're not gonna wanna miss out on any of the cool things that I'm working on over here. I'm building furniture, I'm doing DIY home improvement projects, I'm making models, I'm making props, I'm making all kinds of stuff because, well, why not?